Three, two, one. Hello and welcome to Foundry Files, episode 31. I'm Admiral Murphy.
And I'm Wee Wee. Hello, I'm back.
Oh, I thought you left. I thought I got you off the... Oh. I'm gonna go get some food.
So hang on, replace him with me. I think that's quite a trade-off actually. That's a very significant trade-off. Now the show's mine once again, hooray, I can direct where we go. Screw you!
Okay, I'm back! I'm not letting that happen! Let's start the intro.
Hi, I'm Wee Wee. This is the Foundry Files, and I own the show now apparently.
Does he?
So... damn, I'm back.
Oh, wait, what? Huh? Who? What's going on?
Anyway,
What?
that person over there decided to leave me. Although that's a bit hypocritical considering, but never mind.
Oh,
Oh, hi, by the way. Yes, I'm back. I'm alright. I'm fine. I'm not dead.
I was getting worried. You know, they have some, like, acid rain over there, cold fronts and stuff. I don't know. Britain's a messed up place.
Actually, in all serious fact, there have been a couple of thunderstorms in the past couple of days because it's been so
So you've been, like, dodging
flaming
lightning
sunny
and
and
stuff?
warm over here.
Oh, yeah. Heat
It's
waves.
like the warmest summer since like 2003. Brits would know what that means.
Yeah. Britain's a dangerous place. I'm so glad I'm here in America where everything's hunky-dory. But anyway.
That's so better.
What?
So better.
Have you seen...
You're warm all the time. The weather we're having now is like, it's constant for you. That's not going to help.
I don't know. They tell us we're safe on the TV, so I'm going to listen to the TV. We're safe. But anyway, so this is Foundry Files. We covered the Foundry toolset of Star Trek Online, and sometimes Neverwinter, though we don't really play it. But, you know, there's one over there, too. You can make missions over there. It's fine. We don't have any problems with you people that do that. But, anyway, another slow week with nothing to go on Foundry, which I ranted about quite a bit last week. I should probably pull Wee Wee for his quick opinion. How are you with the state of the Foundry right now? What's your thoughts? Because I pretty much ranted about my feelings last week, but how do you feel? I don't know if you watched last week's episode or had time to catch up, but we discussed...
I know what you talked about, yeah, about the whole the state of the Foundry stuff. Personally, I have not changed my opinion. I think it's still progressing. In my opinion, this is no different to what it was before, when we didn't really see that much progression, and I'm not exactly breaking to anything. Nothing really has triggered me for breaking, apart from maybe a few bits and bugs over there at the Foundry, but that's not really anything new as far as I'm concerned. But generally, nothing's really changed for me.
So you're still at the same spot.
Yeah.
That's how I was for a while until I just couldn't get into the Foundry. That's where it's kind of changed for me, where I'm kind of like, oh. And so I'm hoping that gets fixed soon. Recently, Bran Flakes did come out because, you know what, we'll cover that in news because that's kind of a news thing too. I almost forgot about it. But yeah, so we discussed that. Ranted about Bobo Goes to War. Interesting feedback for that so far. I was really worried that a lot of people would rant, and so far one person's only complained, which I'm kind of happy about. But
in all honesty, though, if I had actually been on that show, I probably would have been against reviewing Bobo at all. So we probably would have had.
That's why I did it.
So if anything, it's actually kind of a favour I wasn't on last week.
Yeah, because, well, the reason I wanted to review it is because the search we've discussed is in a bad state, and we haven't heard anything about it getting fixed. And that was my chance to show off how broken the search is. So, there, that's how I chose to do it, because apparently just saying it's broken wasn't enough, so then I just decided to show. So hopefully something comes of that, because now Cryptic has no excuse. when they find out, oh, there's grinds and quotes exploits, because I did claim Bobo's an exploit, so I'm going to stick with it. I do think it's an exploit, and it's at the top. So Cryptic, up to you if you like your search set up that way, because I don't. But it's in the end, it's your product. You can do it however you want. But yeah, let's roll into news, because there's a little bit of news, even though it's been mainly quiet. So I was mentioning Brandflake said something about the Foundry recently, and that concerns to the next Foundry competition, which the last one wrapped up, had a lot of problems though. From what I heard, besides the Foundry going down for that month between the voting and that having to start back up, apparently Brandflake's either deleted the email or he just lost most of the votes or whatever, or something like that.
Saw that, yeah.
So honestly,
That's a bit of a...
Yeah. I never really take part in the Foundry challenges as authoring or playing. I kind of just will check out the winner usually. But, because I usually suspect a lot of stuff that gets submitted is kind of eh. But there's some good stuff that's come out of it, because we've reviewed some really good ones for the Foundry challenges in the past. But yeah, so honestly, I'm just going to consider the last challenge a flop with all the problems that came up with it. Yeah. And it seems like Brandflakes kind of agrees, because he's postponed the next Foundry challenge indefinitely right now, because he doesn't have a plan to start it back up until the Foundry's fixed. So he did say in his post that it's going to be fixed soon, hopefully, because he was hearing that they're working on it. So hopefully something's done soon, because the plan is still for Vegas to show off the Foundry tool. But if we can't get into it, that's going to stink.
If I recall though, didn't this current Foundry, well, the last one, the number 7 I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't it start back in like March or April? This is going on for like 3 or 4 months.
It's been a while.
It's been quite a while, and Legacy Rhombus didn't really help with that.
No, Legacy Rhombus came out like the first week of what would be the voting process. So I think it's about a month to make the mission or something like that, and then 3 weeks to vote, something like that. So basically, add a month to the voting process, and that's how long it took. So, but hopefully Foundry's fixed and everything will get back to normal. But as of right now, it's been kind of quiet. But there is a workaround right now for one of the bugs that's been plaguing the Foundry, and that is the long loading screens. So from what I've heard, is it's being referred to as Frost. You were saying the Foundry dev's name is Frost? Maybe that's why?
I don't know. It might be. I've seen that name before. I haven't been really keeping track of all the devs and all the new names about all of them, because I haven't really interacted with them or seen them that much in the forums, whether just me actually blindly not looking or anything. I don't know. But
I don't know. I don't know our Foundry dev's name. I've never heard anything from him.
Either way, what this is basically is, the problem is some of the maps in the Foundry, customized ones you have long loading times, and it's eventually been determined that if you add certain like objects, or any objects, I think it is, it's like NPC contacts, objects, assets, that kind of thing, anything at all, the loading times are completely affected, and they just go straight down. It takes like an hour to load like 1% or something ridiculous like that. But that's basically the workaround. Don't add anything new to the maps, and that's kind of bad. That's really kind of bad.
It's still... It's great that there's a workaround for it, but it's still painful.
It's pretty bad. I didn't think you to your map. It's like, what if you've made a mistake or something that you just realised now?
Just one little change. Just one little change. Because I'm the type of person who will build a map, make a few changes, then quickly go back into it. But I'll repeat that process so many times real quick, because I'll get it wrong, and then wrong, and then wrong. But it'll keep getting closer, because I'm usually stacking walls up and stuff together. But yeah, it's still a pain. I don't find this is a workaround that I'd like, so I still am not authoring. But it's a workaround that if you're fine with it, you can go ahead and do it. But another one is you can copy the objects still. It's just placing the objects. If you place like every object on a map, you can copy it, you can paste it, and that doesn't affect it from what I've heard. It's just if you take something from the toolbar and drag it on, that's what affects it. So
that's the thing though. If you think about it, copy an object, that would still enable the same exact functionalities you would from the original object.
I know.
But couldn't you just replace it with something else?
I don't know, but from what I've read in posts and stuff, copy's fine.
Copy's fine. So if you use a copy, that would get around it even further. So you can add something. It's just not the usual way.
That's why I mean,
it's bad, but at least it's almost a full workaround.
Yeah. But I
But
think that's all the news this week.
one other thing, though,
What's going on?
no, about that copying thing. I've noticed, I don't know whether it's just me and my client or something, but sometimes the copying doesn't seem to work, at least with me. If for some reason it doesn't copy or it bugs out or something, so if it doesn't work for you, then, well, I'm sorry, it doesn't work for you.
I don't know.
But,
Foundry's not working, so
yeah.
sorry. Sorry, we don't make
happens.
the Foundry.
It just happens.
It's stuff. It's random. So hopefully everything will be fixing. But missions are still up and working for the most part. I think a few people have complained. So we did play one. It's the next part of the Crossing series. So let's review that, shall we?
And onto the review for this week, the Crossing 2 of 3, part 2 of this, what is now 16 parts, because he's recently released the 16, which I'll be looking forward to doing eventually. But anyway,
Don't
part
hold
2,
on, hold on. Don't get
really,
confused.
really long series.
Yeah, don't get confused because somebody said, "Are you really going to review all 16 parts?" Because you should probably pick up the pace then. I said, no, what we're doing is we're going to review this mini-series, which is the Admiral for now. If we
And then
go and
take a
check
little
out the
break.
others. Yeah.
And then take a little break before reviewing the next one and keep repeating. I mean, towards the latter half, it gets into single episodes. We'll probably break them up the same way. But we'll be covering the entire series over the course of about 6 months to a year, I want to say.
Yeah, it'll be a while. Basically, if we can't find missions, we'll come to this. So, but there's a lot of missions out there. It's just a matter of going through that messed up search to find them. But
Yep.
you can send us your missions if you have a good one. foundryfiles@gmail.org. That helps us out quite a bit. At gmail.com, not org. They're not an org. My bad. But anyway, what we got about this mission? What's some of the info, Wee Wee?
Well, as of this recording, it has 825 players with an average star rating of 3.89.
So around our
it's
4.
Part 2 of 3.
Yeah, star rating is still working too.
So it's pretty decent, yeah. Pretty decent, considering the number of players and the average star rating.
Yep. So the adventure has you as your mirror universe counterpart. Now
Yep.
you're under the command of Admiral Smith, who was the admiral in the last mission that you went to go bust. But guess what? You swap sides. So, oh yeah, remember we do spoilers from the first part because we assume you've played it between now. So heads up there. What are your plans now? What are his plans and what are your plans now here in Prime Universe as you take on the Prime Universe forces? So the plot was good, but it was very simple, and so I want to throw this to Wee Wee because this is what I thought when I played the plot. After I was finished with it, I was like, nothing really happened in it, so it's easily forgettable after a while. Which it's been about 2 weeks since I've played it. Wee Wee just played it, so he's a little more, and I'm kind of right now because I'm like, I don't remember much about the plot now. I kind of remember the basics, which I can't really go into without going, okay, I remember how this ends, but I don't remember the basics. So what Wee Wee, what do you think?
First of all, just to emphasise, guys, just how lack of memory Murphy really has. He's literally written the 6 words. The 6 words he said. Plot was good,
but it's
comma, but still simple. That's literally all he's written
yeah,
for this page.
It's not really memorable.
I'm just sort of emphasising that. But generally, part 2, normally you'd expect some kind of development, especially considering the length of this part. But it does get developed a lot more interesting later on. But in this specific part, it didn't develop as much as I thought it would.
It still seems like setting it up.
It's still more of a setting up. Yeah, you're right. And you're sort of like continuing this sort of like mini arc where you're in the Prime Universe, as it would seem, from first glance at least.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, it's more of a progressive mission. It's not really something that would get you sort of into the more meaty stuff, as it would say. But it is one of those missions where you need to play in order to understand it, because there is a couple of things, especially towards the end, which you really need to know to get set for part 3.
Yeah. There's some big stuff that happens at the end of this mission, but we don't spoil the ending of the mission. So
it's a bit like I want to say it's the search for Spock. It's like the concept Spock voyage home sort of thing. So Spock was it's considered good, probably one of the best out of the odd number ones, as to go for that effect. There we go again.
The odd number effect. It's like the DS9 effect.
It introduced a load of new stuff, like the Starbase, the Klingon Bird of Prey. You have to watch it to know what happened to get
the next
back.
Yeah.
But it's not the greatest film in the world out of the Star Trek series. But you have to watch it. You just have to. It's a must.
So I did say in my first part of the review that I felt more characters need to be introduced, and the author did answer that request.
Did he do a job alright?
He introduces quite a few characters. It is a little hard
You?
to... Huh? Okay, a lot.
You?
It's kind of hard to follow how many get added into this, but there is a lot of detail put into these. So hopefully he continues to elaborate on these so people will remember them, because you're introduced to a pack full of characters. Because you're meeting different captains of ships, admiral, all of them, and there's a lot going on with characters.
That was actually one of the things I had about the whole series altogether. There is a lot of characters to remember. I didn't remember half of them. Only the ones that you really interact with the most, like Admiral Smith, really, for example. All these mini characters, I basically immediately forgot. I mean, it's good they had names, but there's so many of them.
Yeah.
It's just like, is it too much? Is it too...
That's the problem with, for like TV shows, I have a hard time remembering characters and stuff for a while. One of the shows I think that successfully did it was Eureka, that sci-fi show. It had a lot of characters when you look back at that show, but they're quite memorable because they're quite different from each other. So
Deep Space Nine had that as well, didn't it?
Deep Space Nine had quite a few characters too. I mean, especially with the recurring guest stars, but they're different and memorable. So maybe look at those type of characters in shows for examples and how to make them memorable and stuff like that. Dialogue is going to be a bit tough to cover here because it was very well written and interesting in content-wise, but I want to get back to that when we hit grammar because it takes a 180, but we'll get to grammar when we get to grammar. But on a pure just content-wise, the dialogue was well written. It definitely had the mirror universe feel still, so that's good there.
Yeah, believable, harsh language, lots of insults. That's good.
Good canon usage, and there was touchstone, of course, on the mirror universe and other Star Trek-y stuff. Can we say what?
Don't you mean usage?
Yeah, usage. Excuse me, I typed.
He spelled it wrong, guys. Instead of putting usage, putting
coming from the guy who misread the notes when I added stuff in is still pissed off about that.
Hang on. What about the yonging?
The yonging? The yonging?
The yonging.
That's not a real mission. It's not real. Nobody made that. It wasn't the Spotlight. But yeah, so I can't really go into what Star Trek plots were touchstone on because again, it spoils the story, but stuff's going on. Grammar is what I want to touch on because while the dialogue has a lot of good content written in it, the grammar could use a lot of improvements. And for whatever reason, last week we did not catch this. I don't know why. It was when I played the second part, I had to go back and play the first part because the grammar errors are so frequent that it does become distracting.
So what were the main errors? Because I didn't spot them initially.
Yeah, so the problem is, it's been a while since I played the mission, but from what I remember, run-on sentences in every line of dialogue, basically. On every box that will pop up, there's usually run-on sentences. And it's the way the author words the boxes. Instead of like ending it with a period, it's always, the paragraph is just one long sentence with commas, where you'd think, oh, in my brain there'd be a period there, but no, it's a comma, and he just continues the sentence. So it's a paragraph of a long-running statement. So if you were to voice that out loud, it'd be just some guy going blah 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 really long and fast, and it'd be just So and
just be thankful there are commas in that sentence, otherwise we'd be going blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah, at least there's commas, but really the author needs to go back and look at this one and the first part. This does happen. The first part was just we didn't pick up on it then, but both of them suffer from this. You definitely want to go back and rework the grammar so it just matches, because it is frequent and distracting, especially for writers. Writers will definitely notice this.
The content of the actual stuff, like we said earlier, is fine. That's perfectly alright. It's just
the formatting.
Put a few sentences instead of one big long sentence with a few commas in between.
Yep, exactly. It's well written. None of the content needs to be changed. Just how you put it into the dialogue box does need to be changed. Spelling was fine, so that's fine too. It was just run-ons. That's all you got to worry about. Story scored a 7.72, our 34th ranked mission in story. So it's good. It's not going to be memorable.
I want to say something. 7.72. That you would think it's a pretty high score, but we've reviewed, I think it's 43 by now, and that's in 34.
Yep.
You can see the orientation, what we're going for. Most of the stuff we've been reviewing are story oriented.
Yeah. And
you can tell that has a big impact on the score.
Yeah. I'd say this story is very good. It's just not going to be memorable yet. Probably later on down the line after you play more of the parts. I guess the major difference here is when we look at like a 5-part series, like you said, one is usually the introduction mission, setting it up. This still kind of continues that, which you'd kind of expect more development, but honestly it does feel like you're still setting up, because a lot of characters are introduced, new ideas are introduced, nothing really continues. It kind of continues at the end, but then it's the end of the mission, and you're just like, oh, now it's on to the next part. So it is a 16-part series, so maybe it needs multiple parts to introduce all this stuff, but again, that's just how this part kind of comes across.
Kind of did really, after looking back at it, it kind of did really.
Yeah, Wee-Wee's the one who's played through all the parts. I'm playing this as a first time, which is good, I guess, because he knows what's coming up. I'm playing this as a new user, just going through the parts at each on their own. So technical here, there was some simple customization to most of the maps. Art assets were used to spice them up, but pretty much all of them were already maps that were pre-made. It was either, for the ground maps, stuff was added in to make them look a little different. And most of the space maps in this one where you can find in other missions. Like, one of them I know is the one where you go into fluidic space, the one with the weird figure eight and rings and asteroids around the 2 planets. That map,
which I don't think we could do, so I think we could tell.
Yeah, that's how I was able to tell, like, oh, you can't do that in the Foundry, so pre-made already. A lot of space maps do that. I usually have more of a problem when it's space maps that are pre-made, if it's not supposed to be that system, because space maps are so easy to make. You just plop a planet, or plop some asteroids, really simple, and it's a new space map. Whereas ground maps, you kind of are stuck in pre-made with the way the Foundry's made.
Ground maps are a lot more restrictive. Space maps, you have a bit more freedom. Ironically called space, you wouldn't expect something to put that, but you kind of get punished for lack of customization by some people. Yeah. But the only real reason you would really need to use pre-made map is it's the same system.
Like Bajor or something.
Just name out example, I think it's the Solar System, Starbase 114, I think it is. It's over in Regulus where you have to do like a bunch of stuff there.
Yep.
And you would really only use that system for that actual starbase because it's a center point in the Federation. You would potentially use that all the time.
Yep.
But systems like that for the fluidic space map, you kind of generally see it's pre-made.
People will recognize it.
We need a bit more customization on that kind of stuff.
They'll recognize it as, oh, I've been here before, but this isn't that place. Why does it look the same? So I'd recommend just completely redoing your space maps, even if they're simple, just simple changes. Transitions were okay, but especially towards the end, some maps had very little to do. It was either fly up, scan the thing, and then you go to the next map and repeat the same thing on another one. It was stuff like that.
Especially you go to one certain object, which I'm not going to name.
Yeah.
You just there's a bit of dialogue. You go to it. There's a bit of an effect, and you scan it, and then you go through it.
Yeah. So it's some little stuff there. So with long loading times, that will kind of annoy some players. But other than that, it's okay.
He could have fallen into that trap, I just want to know, a couple of times, but I think there was at least a satisfactory amount of dialogue and content
to break it up.
And gameplay stuff, like a few mobs which could have helped. I mean, there's like a transition map, there's a waiting around map next to a couple of allied ships as well, which really could have suffered from lack of dialogue, which I thought really could have happened, but then I noticed all this stuff in between, and I'm like, he just got past that, I would say. He scraped along the border of just being a few pointless maps to just manage to getting along, in my opinion.
Yep. The author did show good knowledge of the Foundry. There were no Foundry issues in here with the way he set anything up. Good art asset usage to add to the maps. He's done some good job on doing some interior stuff. We saw the Agony booth again. Loved that.
And I think it's one of the first missions. Granted, it's really one of the first missions reviewed since Legacy of Romulus. But he used the new transporter pad. That was added in Legacy of Romulus as well, so he's used that.
Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I love it when people make their transporter pads and stuff, because I hated the one that Cryptic made. It was just TNG big. I like the ones
all he could do before was add like a few circles on the bottom, like it's like mini desks or something, and put a few lights on the ceiling, and there you go. That's your transporter.
Yeah, the one in this mission is much better than that type of stuff. Wee-Wee, what did you think about creativity in this mission?
Well, in the playthrough we did recently, it didn't surprise me anything because we played through it before, but I was trying to recall a few of the stuff that I had before, and one of the things I noticed was it's an object that must not be named. Get that reference? And it's that kind of a thing. It's on one of the pointless maps towards the end. It's something which you did not expect. At least I didn't expect. And it makes complete sense of why it's there as well. And I think there was another couple of points as well. With, I think, which is probably worth mentioning, when you're fighting a couple of enemy mobs, fed mobs, which you are inevitably going to do in that universe anyway, one of the enemy ships supposed to be leading them is yourself. It happens to be a fed version of yourself. And it's not like, I think it was, what was it, Own Worst Enemy, I think it was, where that technical work around. It's not like that. It's not like an actual ship you face. It's just there. It's just a mention. I thought it was pretty creative. I thought that was probably going to happen at some point, and it was just inevitable more than really creative, but at the same time, it was pretty good.
Yeah, the only part I really remember it was story. Like, there wasn't any cool technical things. Like, the transport pad was cool, but it wasn't huge. Stuff like that. So it really is some interesting stuff for the story once you get towards the end. The only Foundry limitation in this one was ship skinning. Usually I'm the one who's fighting because I'm like, oh, the Foundry's so limited already. The ship skinning I don't have a big issue with. This one I kind of did because the way he skinned the ships is when you're fighting the Federation, it's usually 2 different ships, a Miranda and something else. That's a bigger ship. So like I took on at one point a Miranda ship and an Excelsior. Now it kind of made sense for the Excelsior to be reskinned as a battleship because it's like okay.
I think it was a cruise mob actually. I think yeah.
Yeah, but I took it as 2 battleships or cruisers or something because when I took on the Miranda, that was definitely not a Miranda.
It was yeah. I was looking at the specific mobs because I knew he'd reskin them because of the way the limitations of the Foundry is. You're technically a Fed, but because you're playing as Terrans, it has to be the Terran mobs have to be a Fed representation, so you have to reskin them. And I was curious of what you reskin them as. The Excelsior made sense. Excelsior in the game, I believe, are cruisers, but the Miranda was a cruiser, and it's actually supposed to be a frigate.
Yeah. And so you're fighting a Miranda, and you're used to blowing up tons of Mirandas, especially if you're a Cleon.
One that stood out the most to me was actually Galaxy X as a cruiser.
That one I saw, yeah.
That doesn't really work with anything as a Dreadnought, and you put it as a cruiser instead of a battleship, which
so
kind of made it weird as well.
So I'd do another look over your ship skins and stuff. Maybe just make it like Defiance and stuff.
Yeah.
Try to keep it in line with what the Fed ships would be if you took them on as a Cleon or something like that.
But make them good ships.
Yep. Oh no! The score tied with Not Our War in Tech. Oh,
got a tie. We have a tie for this one. I'm very happy.
6.93 in technical, tied with Not Our War. Great. 29. Well, at least Wee Wee's now happy when he talks about gameplay here. So go ahead, happy little Wee Wee.
Well, space gameplay, unfortunately, to start off with, was actually pretty weak. There's not much to do besides combat. And when I say not much to do, I mean I literally mean there's barely anything to do besides it. You warp up to a bit, you scan a couple of things, a few dialogue boxes, and there you go. You're done. That's literally what happens.
Yep.
It's rather unfortunate because I think it must be half the mission was about in space, and the other half was in ground. And I'll cover ground later, which is found pretty epic. Space. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I wasn't a huge fan of space in this mission.
A lot of improvement, yeah. Space in this mission it needs improvement. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I won't add further. But the combat, on the other hand, was pretty interesting. There are a number of mobs present, all in reskin as Terrans, which I just said a minute ago. There are a few instances of multi-stacking, which makes the group interesting, especially on like a transition map. There are a couple of cruisers on either side of you, which really should make you think tactically. There's not a lot of room in that scenario for various reasons, but if you could play it right, you'd be able to defeat them both if you've got enough DPS, or if you play your tactics right, you draw one of them out or something like that. That's always what I like to see. It's something that makes you think, or if you want to go in guns blazing, you have enough DPS anyway. But generally good combat in all instances, I say, despite some of the few reskins which really doesn't make any sense. Like fighting Miranda would take a bit longer in this instance. But yeah, ground is pretty engaging, as I just mentioned a minute ago. Plenty of optional dialogue pop-ups, and when I mean plenty, this ties into the amount of characters you go into. And I say all of them, all of the optional dialogues have a character tied to them. Yep. And they all have a name. All of them.
Yep.
And there's a
detail
lot.
And thought was put into these guys.
Detail, but again, there's a lot of characters, and there's a bit of background, and that's always really, really nice. The background of these specific characters isn't that important, but it does give you a bit of like, why are you here? You have a name, is there a reason? Yes, why?
Yeah, so if you want this information, you can get it.
Mm-hmm. There's not much else, but again, this is another instance of not needing a puzzle pad, but a good gameplay score. It must be like the third or fourth mission we've seen this by now.
Yeah.
I'm actually really curious, like, how many more are we going to see? And how many puzzles are we going to see in the future? Because I haven't really seen many recently.
Played a puzzle
they're not really been either. Which is
it's
quite surprising.
It's because the way you can make puzzles are quite limited with it's just being dialogue focused. There's only so many times you can do it before players just kind of go, ugh.
Yeah, ground combat was functional. Yeah. I'll put it that way. This is primarily because there was literally only one group to fight.
One.
And whilst the group was interesting to fight, it was a Captain Level Terran group. Watch out for those miniguns, by the way.
Hate those miniguns.
Oh my, yeah, those are utterly terrible to tear you apart, but there wasn't anything to do besides this. So there's one group to fight in one instance, for a pretty good reason, I have to say, which you'd have to go and play and find out.
Yep.
The story progression got around this, I'd say generally, and generally I'd say the mission didn't present an opportunity to have another mob, because most of the time, you were actually on friendly soil, so to speak.
For ground, for sure.
For ground. Space, that's a different story, but good combat, but extremely very limiting.
It was nice that at least the part when I gave it its combat score, I was like, yeah, there's only one mob, but at least the author didn't feel like he had to make it grindy just to include ground combat, or come up with some stupid story reason why. Oh, I gotta beam over a ship now just to shoot some stuff up.
There's another character in that instance as well, which is always a fun tie, and another character which you don't really have to remember.
Yep.
It's sort of like a throwaway, basically.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of replayability as well.
Yep.
But don't get your hopes up, because it's limited to alternate dialogue, and even that's limited in a few instances. We saw it in the first part as well. The only real presentable option for dialogue in this mission is when you're really questioning something. There's no like choice of what you're going to say. It's like, I want to say this, but there's only one option.
Yeah, which...
Few opportunities would have been nice. I mean, granted, linear progression, considering the amount of parts this actual story has, but it just feels forced in a way.
Especially if you're an alien character and not a human or a Terran. So, I would definitely recommend considering that not everybody who's going to play this mission is going to be Terran. I still do recommend for players, if you're going to play through this, do play as a Terran, because I feel like it makes more sense instead of playing like a Vulcan who's been enslaved by the Terrans, because people will treat you not like a Vulcan who's been enslaved by the Terrans, but as a Terran themselves.
I think we mentioned that in the first part, didn't we?
Yep.
Most of the dialogue seems to revolve around the fact that you're a Terran, specifically a male.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of instances which is actually quite fun, where you're actually torturing a few of the species, where there's like a Tellarite in an agony booth as well, which is always fun. Which you'd be in there if you were a Tellarite, by the way. So, yeah, it's quite limiting, and that's resulted in a gameplay score of 5.65 in 41st place.
Yeah.
So one of the lowest ones we've seen, not the lowest, but one of the lowest. And let's just say that gameplay needs to be improved. I've covered it in the specific scenarios. Gameplay definitely needs an overhaul, especially in space.
Yeah, it's something that if somebody's just looking to go and shoot shit, or just play a game for fun, not really look at the story, this one I can't really recommend for gameplay. So if you're somebody who's not going to read the dialogue, this mission isn't for you. But if you're somebody who likes story, definitely there. But what do we think overall? What's the opinion?
Well, overall, I'd say it's a satisfactory continuation of the plot line with a good overall story, despite a few grammar issues. Quite a bit of work is needed in both technical and gameplay, generally, but overall, I'd say it's a mission that is necessary to play for the progression of the overall plot line leading into part 3. I mentioned about half of that before, but that's really what this mission is. It's necessary. It's the Search of Spock effect. We have another effect. But
we need a book of these.
Yes, we do actually. Actually, somebody watching, write down all of these.
Yeah, we need all the effects.
Have a list. Email it in. I want to have a list.
Yep.
But anyway, overall its score is 6.76, which put it in 39th place. So it's quite low down, this, unfortunately. But there is quite a bit of work needed, and if those specific parts were improved quite a bit, this would definitely get above the 7. I'll tell you that.
Yep. So it's good, just needs a little bit of work in some categories. But if you have a mission out there, again, send it to foundryfiles@gmail.com. Before we get out of here real quick, because our files here are getting pretty big, but I have a correction to make. Wee is on vacation during the Vegas convention, which I did not know before, so he will not be on the Vegas episode, sadly. So the plan is, next week I'm not here because I'm in Colorado, which I did mention before, but we will be releasing our top 10 list then. Wee's going to handle that. And then at Vegas we will do the Foundry tutorial. I'll probably do it with Mav or somebody down there, so there'll still be that. But and then after that, when we get back from our vacations and stuff, we'll be reviewing the next part of this. Hopefully that shuttle mission. I think we plan on checking that out. If we feel it's good enough to bring it up on the show, we'll check that out. But again, that's about it. I think that's all. Yeah. So bye.
Bye. That's all?
I just looked at the camera, just like, okay, bye. You can go. You're free to go. go play a game. Play Civ 5. That's a good game.
So what we're doing first, the
Crossing Admiral,
mission.
because this is this week's episode. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep that all together. Hi. Go ahead when you're ready.
No, I just realised it's actually starting to get dark over here.
I just saw it. It was just like, vroom. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, but actually I'll close the curtains right now because it was going to turn dark in the middle of the segment. Really dark.
Uh-oh, you're gonna need a light. They have lights over there, right? I didn't know if it was like third world
Yes,
country.
don't worry.
They have lights? Okay, good. Is it still like candles and quill pens and stuff? I'm gonna get punched in the face. Get punched. Alright, your lighting looks good. See, this is the quiet wait before the storm, before the brilliant guy says something. Because he's going to say some brilliant stuff in this segment, so stay tuned. Does that book on your shelf say now panic and freak out? Oh, he turned it off. There was a book on his shelf that I was looking at. It said, now panic and freak out. Hey, you saw that, people. I'm pretty sure you saw that. Whenever you're ready, let's record. No pressure.
There we go.
No pressure. I can't do that. I'm not wearing a jacket. I got the blue toss shirt on. I can look fancy with this pen. Pens are fancy.
Let's just get started, shall we?
Well, I told you can go whenever you want, Mr. It's my show now. I get to lead the way. I'm like leading people to their seats now. To like here's the mission. Here, over here. Okay, I'm gonna hit the stop.